Hi you guys, so I have another kit from Emmeline Bags. Are you surprised? I love these kits. So this is another bag that is going to be made with some wax canvas, but I'm excited to try this one out and see how this one goes. I love making bags. It is one of my new favorite things to do. I think it's a lot of fun, and I will give a review of this pattern and I will walk through some of the steps. So if you're interested in seeing how it turns out, just keep on watching. Okay, so we need to see what is in this bag. Let's take a look. So I know there's wax canvas in here. I can see a zipper, but there's some other things, so we need to check it out. So first, here is the pattern, and I love that it already comes printed. There looks to be a lot of walkthrough steps, but I'm not going to show too much of that because, I mean, it's a pattern that you're supposed to purchase, so I don't want to show all the sizing and everything. But it does look really well done. Here's a peek at the back. I love when there are pictures of all the steps. And this one also provides a little peek at how we should be cutting everything on the fabric that we got. There is also a little bit of a snippet about the wax canvas and how to care for it. Okay, so one of the reasons, and as you probably have come to realize, is when I choose a kit, it's because there is something in it that I'm not used to using when it comes to bags yet. So I like to get a kit and kind of feel comfortable that I have all the components I need to do everything. And that in this bag was these top closures for a bag. I've never used them before. And when I saw that this one has it, and I can always use storage bags, I thought, let's give it a try. So this is actually the smaller version of the bag, and for the kit I purchased, and you can see there's two different sizes. So if I like the pattern, I can always do the bigger size because I have all the information for it. I would just need to buy the closure. And let me see. So it's called an internal wire frame. So that's one of the reasons I bought the bag. And so we also get our exterior fabric, which is the waxed canvas. And as you can see, it gets the wear and everything on it from the more you fold it up. And I kind of love that idea. Just keep that in mind if you're not into that with the waxed canvas, that the more you move it around, the more wear it's gonna get. And I think it's beautiful. You can use a hairdryer to kind of get some of that out if you don't like it, but I think that's one of the reasons you would purchase it. So this is the interior fabric, very beautiful, and I think it goes really well with the wax canvas. So when you open the bag, it's just going to look lovely. Then we have some interfacing that does not go on the wax canvas, but is going to be for the interior of the bag, and it's a nice sizable amount. Every time I've purchased a kit from Emmeline Bags, I've always had some leftover interfacing, which is nice, and she has always provided a sheet like this that kind of tells you how to use the interfacing if you have not used it before. So we got our zipper. It's a very, very long zipper. This is from By Annie. It's a single slide handbag zipper, and it is 24 inches. And then we also have some other hardware here. I think these are zipper ends, and then we got this cute little handmade placard to put on the bag. Isn't that adorable? And then we have some zipper ends so that the zippers don't look all janky after we make our bag. We want it to look nice and professional. Okay, so that is all the items we have to make the bag. So what I always do first is I read through the pattern just to make sure I understand everything. That doesn't always work out, but it's always a good place to start. Read through. Since this is two different sizes, sometimes I'll highlight the size that I'm making just so I don't get confused and accidentally cut something the wrong size. but I'm not going to show cutting the pieces. I'll start with the pieces already cut and kind of walk through what we have, like the different shapes and templates that we're using. And then we'll just get started with piecing the bag together. Okay, sound good? Are you on board? Okay, so first I'm going to show you the different pieces that I cut here. And then we're going to put the hardware on and get the zipper ready. So this is the front and back of the bag. So the two wax canvas pieces. Then we have two pockets that I put the interfacing on. And then we have the two interior pieces that we also have interfacing on. So not a lot of components to this bag, which is nice. I think that means it should come together pretty quickly. So what we're going to do, just to get these parts out of the way, is we're going to put the handmade hardware on the bag, and we're going to do the zipper ends and get all that out of the way now. So if you remember, my zipper was 24 inches. It needed to be trimmed down to 16. So I went ahead and cut that. We have two screws here, and per the suggestions, I said to use E600 to glue the ends in first and then do the screw. So I have never used these before. It's gonna be like a little bit of trial or error. I have some stuff here to hopefully keep everything from getting to what happened to this. Okay, probably got more on there than I needed to. So the paperwork she gave for this bag, it said directed me to their website to see how to adhere these. So I'm just gonna do what it said on the tutorial, and that was to fold it and shove it in there. I'm using this glue because I have fabric glue, but I'm worried that that would be too take too long to dry. So I got that in. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. Put something down because I don't want that glue to get on my thing because it's just getting wild everywhere. I'm not the only one who uses this glue. My daughter does too, so I don't know where that point thing that I normally have for it is. So I'm just gonna make a mess everywhere. So this side, I'm a little bit more confused as to how to make this look nice because it's not nice and closed at this end. Maybe I'll put some stitches over it real quick to kind of hold it in place. Hold on. Okay, so I think the stitches will do the trick. Hopefully my glue did not dry yet. Let me put this back on. I don't know what's going on with that anymore. So still gonna just fold those down, and maybe I'll close this a little more. Tricky. And just try to shove it in there. This side's definitely not as easy. So not too bad. I might fiddle with that side a little bit more before I put the screws in. Let me set this stuff out of the way and not lose these screws. And then we got this one panel. So what I did was I found the center of the bag, and I want mine to be at the top of the bag. So I measured to the center of the bag and then measured a little bit down because there's going to be some seam allowance there and everything. So I just put that there, marked where I'm going to cut the slits for the hardware, and then we're just going to put the hardware through the holes and put the washer on the back. So you just don't want to cut too much farther than the slits you cut, because you know you don't want to have huge holes there. So I'm gonna cut a little bit of interfacing to put between the washer and that, just to have a little bit more security. You see, sometimes it goes through without needing me to cut it. Okay, and put the washer on. And then I can turn the heat down on my iron to medium and just fuse a little bit of the scrap interfacing on here, or I could use some fabric glue and glue that down just to protect the lining of the fabric, so the metal washer and stuff doesn't tear up my bag lining. So that is pretty much done. Let's do the screws on here, see if this looks pretty good or not. I think it should be in nice and sturdy, it feels like. Okay, this feels good and secure. So there we go. We have those steps out of the way. So we're just gonna move on to the rest of the bag assembly. I love getting stuff like this out of the way, all the hardware and stuff. Okay, so I have this stuff glued on here. It's not quite sticking yet, but here is how the handmade looks. And let's set this aside, but that hardware is gonna look so good matching that. So on the wrong side of all of our pieces of the bag, we're going to mark 1 inch in on the top. So let me get some different markers here, because some of the fabric is all different. And grab a ruler. So 1 inch in, and this is on the wrong side of the fabric that we're marking all of these. Okay, so, and then also we're going to cut the boxed bottom of the bags. So I'm gonna line these up so I can do 2 at a time. And we're cutting a 2-inch square from them. So just, if we're gonna do this, we need to make sure we have it lined up good. So what did I say? I'm on the wrong 2-inch. I'm like, that does not look right. So 2-inch. So 2-inch box bottom. And we're gonna do this on this exterior fabric and on the lining fabric. Okay, so I'm gonna cut that out. Make sure it's still lined up. Cut all the way through. Okay. And then we need to do the same on here. So here at this point, if we were using fusible fleece on the exterior, it does direct to cut some seam allowance from either side, but we're not using that, so we should be good. And so we're just going to move on to the next step. Okay, so we're into the part where we are going to start sewing the bag together. So remember, we have 2 pockets. So the first thing we're going to do is get our slip pockets prepped. And what I did was folded right sides together and sewed a 1/4 inch seam along 2 sides and a little bit of the open area. And this is so we can flip it. I'm going to go ahead now and clip off some of the corners as directed in the pattern, but I am going to show you actually walking through this. So let me set that one down. So we just folded right sides together and clipped and sewed. So this part is fairly easy, but we will walk through it. Just gonna put some clips around. Usually what I do is put two really close together, and that lets me know that that's a start and stop point. And we are just sewing cotton right now, so I'm just gonna do a, 2.5, 2.5 stitch length, because that is what my sewing machine defaults to. When we get into the waterproof canvas, I will put the stitch length up a little bit, just because that longer stitch length works a little bit better for the waxed canvas. I'm also going to keep my needle in the down position when I turn at these corners, and I am back stitching. So we got one portion finished, so now we're going to go along this last side here. So we are going to clip the corners on this one as well, and clip off any threads we left behind. And then I'm going to flip these and press them. And then what we're going to do after we press them, we are going to top stitch them, and we're going to put one of these pockets on each side of the lining. So I'm going to get that set up as well, so that we can meet back here to do the top stitching and then put these on to the lining. Okay, so I have the pockets pressed, so we're going to top stitch them, and then I already measured on the right side of the lining fabric up 3 inches from the bottom, because that is where we are going to place the slip pockets. So I'm going to extend my thread to 3.5 for the top stitching across here. The pattern does direct that you can do 1 or 2 rows of top stitching. It's up to you how you want them to look. I like to use a stiletto here, because if you remember, this is the open side of the pocket. My thread's just bunching up underneath, so I'm trying to get it to stop doing that. Just remember, there is a lot of seam there, because it's all folded in and there's a corner. So all right, let's go along here. Make sure we catch both sides of the fold. So I'll use my stiletto and make sure that they stay together. Okay, so like I said, the pattern directs that you can do 1 top stitch through there, or you can do 2 to make it a little more decorative if you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2, because I think it'll look nice. So I'm just going to go 1/8 of an inch from that one. Cute, cute. So there's that pocket, and then we pin the pocket onto one side of the lining at that mark that we drew from the bottom, and we want that top to be facing up, and you want to make sure everything is straight. So I drew a nice long line so that I would know if it does look straight. So then you're going to want to center it Make sure it's in the middle of both sides of the bag. You can measure it or eyeball it. I'm going to pin this in place, and I'm going to get my other pocket ready. So what we'll do is top stitch around the side, the bottom up to the top, and leave the opening open for a slip pocket. So let's top stitch this one and get it ready. Okay, and then we'll get this pocket in place on here as well. Remember our top stitching at the top. Make sure it is centered. And then we are going to stitch around both sides and the bottom, leaving the top of the pocket open. Okay, and so like I said, you could measure from the sides, make sure that you have it centered, eyeball it, whatever you want to do to make yourself feel comfortable that it is in place. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to back stitch at the start and at the end, because that will also help secure those stitches that were the top stitching in place as well. It kind of serves double duty here. And then leave your needle down, pivot, leave the needle down and just pivot. And then back stitch. All right. So we can take out those needles now. We can check and make sure everything is looking good. Okay, so we have one pocket finished. So we're just going to do that same thing for the other. If you wanted, you could also make these into little smaller pockets and put some stitching up the middle. You could do that on one or both, but we're going to go ahead and finish up this side. Okay, and now the other pocket is finished. Okay, so we're going to move on to the rest of the bag. Okay, so for the pattern instructions, we place one of the lining sides right side up, and then we put the zipper down and pin another our exterior down right side facing down on top of it and stitch it all at once. I am going to do what I'm more comfortable with, and that is clipping the zipper now and basting it in place, and then putting the this is where reading comes in handy. And the reason they didn't do all of the zipper at once is because you're supposed to pull it down out of the seam allowance at the last inch that we marked way at the beginning. So I'm gonna have to correct both sides of this, and then we'll do the other side correctly. So we're supposed to stitch right up to that mark we made, and then pull the zipper down and sew across. So I'm gonna have to fix the other side, and then we'll do the other side over here. I'm gonna have to pull out the seams, and then we'll do the other side correctly. But, so it's supposed to come out, I'm guessing, so that when we sew up the edges, so it's out nicely. I'm gonna clean up these threads and everything. But this is why it's important to read I don't know. Because I always read them first, but I guess I just wasn't thinking there. I just got to that part and was like, oh, I don't like gluing. I like doing one side at a time, and that's why you should always read it anyway. So I'm gonna rip out to the inch mark here. I have to do it in both sections because I basted one side on first, but thankfully I caught that before I did the complete other side too. So I'm gonna fix this side and then we'll do the other side correctly from the start. How about it? Okay, so this time we're gonna do it correctly. We're gonna place the lining right side up and center our zipper on that. And let me see if it's, so we're going to center our zipper right side up, and we're going to make sure our stuff is all lined up together. And then we're going to put the other exterior piece down, and we're going to pin everything together at once because we have to stop and start at that 1 inch mark. And that was a very important step, so we're going to do it correctly. So we're just going to need to put a lot of clips in here to make sure nothing shifts while we're sewing. And we're going to start in the middle and work out to each edge. So it's a little different than when normally doing zippers. So it's a bit of a learning curve. And I wonder when we're gonna attach that frame. I think it was at the end. This is why I say I read the pattern, and I do. It's just like it all leaves my head. So we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch, and we're gonna start kind of here in the middle and sew to each side. I'm gonna back stitch to make sure this all stays together. So what I'm gonna do is sew up to, I need to make sure all my layers are together. I'm gonna sew up to about 3 or so stitches away from that mark, that 1 inch mark we did. And then I'm going to pull the zipper out of the way and stitch to the end. Oh, that's why my zipper is there. So I'm going to raise my presser foot and move the zipper, like the zipper pull. I can't find it. There's so many layers of fabric. Okay, so I'm going to pull the zipper pull out of the way. Make sure all the stuff's still here. Okay, so we're getting close to that marked 1 inch line. So I'm going to get just a few stitches close. Back stitch. I'm going to leave my needle down, but pull this zipper out of the way. And the pattern says to try to do that at the same angle on each side. Oh, I need to put my foot down, but yeah, I don't know how to do that. So we're just gonna do it like this. So we're gonna go do the same thing on the other side. The tricky thing I found is, and for me it's nice because I can move my needle from side to side, but we're gonna have to get this under the, I have thread everywhere over here. We're gonna have to get this under here on this side because I want to be able to see the right side of the fabric. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna stitch down to the other side a few stitch lengths away. And I need to make sure my zipper and everything is lined up here. Yes. It's hard for me to sew on this side because my left hand is useless and I can't use my stiletto with that hand. So a few stitch lengths away from that marked line, we're going to back up, pull the zipper out of the way. Oh, I need to place the foot. That's why it's not moving. It's like it's moving a little bit, but not as much as it did before. If you are really fancy, you'll have it at the same angle. I'm just trying to make this work. Okay. Back stitch. Alrighty. So we fixed all of that. Let's cut these threads. Okay. So we did that. So there's the inside of our bag, the lining on both sides, and the exterior. And doing that is going to make it where our holes stay outside of the seam. So let me take a look at what we're going to be doing next. Okay, so I opened my zipper halfway and I clipped all the way around the bag. So we're just going to be sewing the bag together with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to get my trusty 1/4 inch seam foot and I'm going to move the stitch back to the center. I'm going to put the stitch length at 3 because I'm going to be sewing through a lot of the waxed canvas here too, and I'm actually going to raise my presser foot a little because there's a lot of seams that we're going to be going through when we get up to where the zipper is. So we did not top stitch around the zipper. It was very clear in the instructions and not to top stitch yet. So this is the next step, and make sure I made sure my zippers are not sticking out of the seams here. They need to be pressed down inside the bag. So don't sew along the box openings yet. We're gonna do this and then do the boxed area later. Don't be like me. I am ripping seams left and right here because I forgot to leave an opening to turn the bag. Unless you really love using your seam ripper, then, you know, keep messing up. But I don't really particularly enjoy ripping seams. I do have a really beautiful seam ripper that my husband made me. But still, I'd prefer not to have to do that. I'd much rather just admire it and not actually have to use it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this seam out so I have somewhere to open this, and I'm gonna back stitch along those two areas just so that the seams don't come open too much there. You probably don't really need to, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And then we're gonna box the bottom of the bag. So the only thing I'm not sure of is well, so I read how we're doing the wire frame, but I don't really understand it. So it's gonna be a learning experience. I'm kind of hoping like the zipper tabs that she has like a tutorial on it, but I don't know. So I'm going to show you how to do one of these box corners because they're all going to be pretty much the same. You just are going to open it up, and if you want to, you can go and actually press your seams open. Because I'm doing the wax canvas on the main side, I'm not going to press that. So I'm just going to kind of like use my fingers to open them, and that kind of helps you find the center. And then just clip I'm not going to clip along all of them along all of this because you're just going to be shoving it kind of under here and just trying your best to keep everything lined up. So do it however you can. But you're going to do this on all of the corners. You may want to use your stiletto or something to hold the two seams together where they're joining. But if you can keep it good with just your fingers, then do that. But there we go. So we have one of the boxed corners done. You want to make sure to backstitch at each side. So just going to go through and do all of those the same, and then we'll be ready to flip the bag and do the wire frame. Okay, so we have the bag all sewn around and the corners all boxed. So I'm just gonna sorry, reach inside and flip it out. Now just remember that because this is waxed canvas, it's going to get a little you know, beat up looking. You can heat it up if you would like with a hairdryer to get some of that look off if you're using waxed canvas and don't like it. I really like how the distressed looks. So you want to push everything out now because it's going to be easier to get all your points out. Admire your nice boxed corners that you made. And after you push everything, you can stitch closed the lining. So I'm going to get ready and do that. I find it a little tricky when you're doing 1/4 inch seams to stitch the lining closed, but we're just going to do the best we can. I kind of prefer a 1/2 inch because you have more room to work, but the pattern called for a 1/4 inch around this bag, and so I wanted to follow the instructions, which is kind of funny since I kept having to rip seams, but I try to follow the instructions sometimes. I guess if I moved it up to a 1/2 inch, as long as I did it the whole time, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal, but it would have been confusing if you purchase this pattern and you're wondering why I'm doing a 1/2 inch and the pattern calls for something else. So let me get this up here. What do you think of the, I think it looks so cool with the distress look from the wax canvas. So I'm just going to do a quick 1/8 inch across the opening here. Try to catch everything in it. I did clip everything, so it should all be good. But after this, we just got to figure out the wire frame situation so that this bag sits upright and open when you want to. Oh, I needed to back stitch there. Let's see if I can catch it back. Get a few more stitches in. Okay. So we can push that inside after we clip and kind of see how it's looking so far. Now, the tricky thing I think is going to be that it says that we need to top stitch around this. Open some of this seam up, I guess, to put that wire frame in. So I'm going to read through that a little more to see exactly how to do that. But what a cute bag so far. What do you think? It definitely sits open nicely with this nice waxed canvas. Look at that. It just sits up nicely. So whatever you want to store in it, like if you're storing, you know, your makeup or anything, you can see everything nice and easily. So the zipper here closes it up nice. And I think the zipper ends that we put on give a nice finished look to that. Very, very different look than making your own zipper tabs give. So let's figure out that wire frame. We have those pockets here too. I forgot to mention those. So let's figure out the frame. Don't think this will be as hard as I thought it would be. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but what we want to do is get as close to the where we did the zipper as possible and do top stitching all the way around. Again, I'm using black. I'm going to go up to 4, I think, for this top stitching. I'm using black thread. Ideally, I would have used something that matched a little bit better, but it is what it is. So what we're going to do is get as close to the zipper as we can, the top of the bag essentially, and just do a top stitch all the way around the bag. And then after we do this, we're going to do another row of it that is going to help hold this wire frame in place. So we're going to do this, and then a 1/2 inch under that, we're going to do some more stitches. I ran out of bottom thread. Oops. Okay, but you see what we're doing. We're getting as close as we can, and then we're gonna sew a 1/2 inch under that next. Okay, so now we just need to open a little bit of the lining between where our stitching is, because that's where we're gonna put the wires through. So this is gonna be tricky because it's so dark. I think it can get through. It's just not gonna be easy. And I probably should do it this way because I think that's gonna be the... At least this is gonna be a dang cute bag. Okay. So I wonder, oh, so it does still close. How cute is that? So I need to stitch that opening I did closed. So it says to hand stitch that, but see how cute the bag is, and the frame does give it a lot more structure when it's open. So how cute is that? I mean, it is really darn cute. Worth it for sure. But whoa, was that frame hard getting in there. So I need to, you can't even hardly tell where that tiny little opening is. So I'm gonna need to stitch that back shut by hand. And when I was messing around, I accidentally, when I was clipping, trying to pull seams to get that in, I accidentally pulled some from the outside. So I'm gonna need to clean that up. But otherwise, this cute little puppy is done. I just need to hand stitch that closed and fix that over here, which I don't know how I'm gonna do because I can't get that under my sewing machine now. So I'm gonna have to stitch that by hand too. But yay, so cute. Okay, so here is the bag all finished. I think it's really cute. I love how it turned out, and I think it'll look really good with, you know, different fabrics on the outside, like a cotton still, and just do a firmer stabilizer inside. I think it can work in a lot of different ways, and I think it was a really fun pattern to make. I don't think it was that hard. I made it hard on myself by not doing a little more of a generous 1/2 inch between here. If I had really thought about it and did a little bit wider, I think it would have been easier to insert the frames. I actually don't think with the wax canvas that you really need the wire frames to keep it open on top. If you remember before I put them in, it stood up pretty nicely without it. It obviously does give it more of a firm, solid structure, but I don't think it's 100% necessary for this pattern depending on the fabric you choose. I think it's really cute. I didn't do one of the, I didn't divide them in half like I mentioned that you could do. I did it just as the pattern said, but you could definitely do that. You could do a couple and make it like cute little lipstick holders if you're going to use it as a makeup bag that opens up so you can see them really nice. There's a lot of fun things you could do with this pattern. I'm definitely going to make more of these bags. Remember, this is the small size. You can make it larger, and both of those sizes come along with the purchase of the pattern. So I'll put the link to purchasing just the pattern and to purchasing the kits if you're interested in the description. Again, it's at Emmeline Bags. I had a lot of fun. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bye. See you next time.